Charlie Munger, in one of his seminal speeches, he talks about how to guarantee failure, how to make sure that you are a failure. And he inverts the concept of success. It's like, what could you do to make sure that you were a failure? It's like, well, you would definitely get involved in drugs, drinking. He says, was it leverage, liquor, and women? That's, the Charlie's big one, right? One of the ones that he has, I think he has 7 in his speech, is consistency. He's like, you have to make sure that you're inconsistent. He's like, because if you are consistent and you have none of the other attributes, he's like, you still might be successful. He's like, it's very tough for people who are consistent to not be successful. And he makes an especially pointed point about consistency, because in my opinion, it's one of the most difficult of the virtues for humans to do, because we're so attracted to novelty. And so, I used to deal with this with, people on their diets all the time. I remember I ran gyms. And so someone would come in and I would always ask the question, so have you been following the meal plan? And then they would say, yes. And so then I started changing the way I asked the question. So I'd say, out of the 21 meals that you were supposed to eat, how many of the 21 did you have exactly the way it was on the meal plan? And then they would be like, oh, at least half. And they would say it as though that was a mark of success. And right now, the meal plan could be your content plan. It could be your showing up to work on time plan. It could be the time that you want to put towards your side hustle. It doesn't really matter. But if there's one muscle that you can flex, it's learning to do the same thing over and over again. Like one of the values that we had at Gym Launch is do the boring work, because boring is what makes you rich, right? It's writing the follow-up sequence to the purchase page that you don't feel like doing, but you should do. It's running the split test for the 10th time. It's actually going through and prepping for 20 minutes before you have the meeting, because it's amazing how much smarter you can appear with 20 minutes of preparation. Like, you can appear 50 IQ points smarter if you just prepare for meetings for 20 minutes. I remember I did a consulting day, which I've only done 3 in my entire life. And when I showed up to the day, because I always want to make sure that everyone always gets more from me than they give me, I had taken 4 hours. Not a long time, but a long time for, I think, some people. But for me, 4 hours is nothing. I counted hundreds, so this was irrelevant. And so I put 4 hours and actually took the time and put it in to do research on the individual. So I looked at every single page they had, every landing page, every offer, everything. And I had 7 pages of things that I thought would make them more money. And so when I started, I was like, this is what we're going to go through today. And I'll walk you through line by line, and you'll have this as a take behind so you can execute it with your team. It was a bigger company. And the guy was shocked. He was like, never in my entire life has anyone had this much preparation. And that's when it goes back to, you need 20 podcasts to be in the top 1%. The bar for excellence, I have this timer that I have on my desk, which it's the easiest purchase you can make. I think it was like $7 on Amazon. It's a little twist kitchen timer. It's very easy. And it's been probably my biggest focus hack, to date, which is I turn it when I want to start working. And part of it allows me to think how long, I get better at predicting how long it's going to take me to do something. So I think this will take me 35 minutes. So I turn the clock to 35 and I click on. And then I start working on the thing. And the moment my phone rings or I look at Slack or whatever, I stop the timer. And so you actually see that your time on task is usually significantly less than you think it is. And I think that in my early days, I would spend a very long time in front of a computer telling myself that I was working with very few minutes actually on task. And that's why I think that most things are actually significantly easier than people think they are. They just don't know how to try hard. Because the harder that you try, the easier it gets. And so it's like, if you can just learn to love what trying hard feels like, then all of a sudden it becomes unreasonable that you can't win. So for the presentation that I'm giving, I explained a little bit earlier about what my process looks like. If you were to say, what would it take for somebody to be unreasonably good, that it would be impossible for them to not be a top 1% salesman or a top 1% content creator, and you said, what would that person need to do? Irrelevant from outcome, what would be the actions or evidence that they would have to do prior to that thing that would make it unreasonable that they couldn't succeed? And then you do those things, what happens is you realize that it's actually not that hard because you put so much work into it, and the bar from other people working is so embarrassingly low that they then ask you how you did it, and it must be easy.